Patirana, Chairman, Sri Lanka Federation of Smallholding Development Societies, and Mr. Lionel, Chairman, Sri Lanka Tea Factory Owners Association, and finally Mr. Chandima Wickramasinghe, immediate past Chairman, Sri Lanka Tea Factory Owners Association.
Acknowledge, also thank your immense contribution for the upliftment of the Sri Lankan Ceylon tea trade over a period of time, which goes back to many decades, even before you started your association. So when I was invited, and Mr. Herath came to see me, I told him this is the third time that I'm going to attend your AGM. This time you must say something good about the minister as well. So he mentioned lightly, he can't come out loud because of the given scenario. And I was also listening to the question paper he presented, which is more difficult than the final MBBS question paper we sat at the university. So I might get a pass mark. I wouldn't get a distinction given the backdrop of the financial difficulties and also the erroneous policy decisions he made. But I was listening at the same venue last year. At that time, the chairman, I think Chandima also mentioned, the fertilizer ban was lifted then by the last AGM. So at that time also tea bushes were recovering. Now, even now it's recovering after 1.5 years time. So the convalescence period is a pretty long one, much longer than recovering from a heart attack or a cerebrovascular accident, I would say. And also he mentioned about the elevation average. It's a sub judice matter that's being discussed at the courts. But we intervened on behalf of the factory owners. They made representation several times. And I must say, I would, as the minister, I wouldn't do anything illegal. I wouldn't do anything bad for the industry. So we have to let us strike the fine balance in relation to the elevation average that we're talking about. And also, we must mention the fact that the industry is coming back to normalcy gradually. It faced a grave crisis last year. Our production came down to 250 million kilos. But as per the predictions of the tea board, this time it might go up to about 270 million kilos. And also, as the rupee gradually getting strengthened over a period of time, we think that one thing is that the prices might go down a little, which would badly affect tea factory owners as well as the tea smallholders out there. But as the minister during last 3 years' time, I must mention the fact that certain concerns that was raised by Mr. Herath in relation to giving license to factories. Yes, as a minister, I have issued 2 licenses during last 3 years' time. That was after much representations made by the people's representatives of those areas. That's namely Passara and also one in Matugama in Kalutara district. Yes, I have done that, 2 factories. That was because of the fact that there was a constant complaint from the tea smallholders, which was brought to me via the parliamentarians. So I, yes, acknowledged that request and permitted that one. But in relation to adulteration matter, I never moved my pen to remedy or to provide any relief to anybody. So we have detected 73 factories from 2020 to 2023. That was, as per the stipulated time frame, those factories are kept closed. I'm very pleased to say In 2023, only 2 factories were detected having adulterated tea. I think the trend is very positive. It's coming down gradually. So it's a good trend. So that is something that I must mention here. And also, I must state the fact that with the help of the tea board, we have initiated few schemes, including the loan schemes, interest-free loan schemes for the people to purchase fertilizer. It's gradually the trend is improving now. And also we must thank tea board. They started contributing for the direct planting mechanism. That was as the Minister of Plantation, we moved the capital paper last year. All this time it was the promotional fund which utilized for the export purposes. And we're getting 50% of that for the plantation activities as well. Having seen the declining trend from 2013 only, we made that move. Now we are getting certain funds from the tea board. Last year we got 450 million rupees for the 1000 nursery program. And this year we will get another 750 million rupees for the direct planting mechanism. That is, I know that you are facing a lot of issues, including cost of financing, which is gradually coming down. My friend would elaborate on that. And also cost of production has gone up, particularly because of the fact that high fuel costs and the electricity costs. Our Honorable Minister of Power and Energy is working tirelessly to ensure that we bring down the cost of generation of electricity of the country. Perhaps by 2024, that we would see a better day in relation to fuel prices, and also strengthening of the rupee, and also in relation to gas and other commodity prices. So that's some positive note. But in relation to your main concern, there's a reduction in the green leaf. So we have to act collectively, work together to ensure that we stimulate the smallholders at the ground level, for which we get the assistance from the TSHDA. They're also working on in that regard, and also the tea board, and also other parties concerned, the Secretary of Ministry, and also our staff is very concerned about that. So what is the way forward? Having looked at that scenario, having understood that scenario only, we proposed, we suggested, there was some resistance from TRI also, Chairman TRI and DG is also here. So I said we have to move away from the traditional mechanism of replantation and new plantation, which we are doing now, for which we are getting funds from the tea board. Why people are moving away from the traditional mechanism of replantation? Because it's time consuming. Generally, they go through a period of 2 to 3 years with a proper income. Yes, government provided subsidy, which was hard to come by 2023, but I must categorically mention the fact that government will continue with the tea subsidies, replantation and new plantation, whilst we engage with the direct planting mechanisms as well. We've seen results from the direct tea planting mechanisms. We started 55 model villages, model gardens. I'm quite proud to say now it has come to the level of harvesting. Most of these, out of 55, we harvest from 40 gardens, if I'm not mistaken. The average yield is more than 900 kilograms of green leaves per month, per acre, something substantial. And the similar mechanisms are deployed by certain private owners as well. Last week I was quite pleased to see one estate in Matugama where double H growing was instituted with fertigation and irrigation. They're getting 1,500 green leaves, 1,500 kg of green leaf per kg per month, which is substantial. So we have seen the results now. So may I request on behalf of the ministry, and also as the people who are much engaged in the industry, who are the other stakeholders to get into some of the lateral thinking and start going ahead with some of the mechanisms that we deploy, including the direct planting mechanism, for which we are getting assistance from the tea board. So I think that was the main concern of all of us, because it was going down gradually, and also other concerns as well. So there's something like gradual reduction of the export markets. How the tea export market came down to $7 billion US last year, as against 7.7 billion in 2021. There's a 5% reduction of the global market, which affects our business as well. Fortunately, we have got doors open to export our teas to Iran through that barter mechanism. Even though we had entered into agreement in 2021, the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation didn't have sufficient funds to provide provide tea board, but now they are financially stable thanks to the price hikes again. But now they are providing us money. With that, we should be able to provide that channel of exportation of Ceylon tea to Iran through barter mechanism, which is already started. So those are the positive notes. But I would say on the long run, I know your concerns about cost of production and also about the cost of financing and also about other difficulties that you go through for the first time, perhaps because of the new income tax mechanisms and all that. But as a country, we went through a bit of a bad patch. We all understand that due to many different multitude of factors. But let us come out from that, come out from this debacle together. You have the strength, the Sri Lankan people have the strength. During last time, if I may recall correctly, during last 75 years, a lot of people mentioned that it was a curse since we gained independence, but we can very clearly show the statistics socially, educational, health-wise, infrastructure, economical statistics show that we have jumped, leapfrog during last 75 years having gained independence. Now from today onwards, on futuristic basis, our journey, your journey, the journey of the country would become a stronger one. We wouldn't go back again. So for that, I may request the support of all the stakeholders in the tea industry, for which Minister of Plantation Industries will provide nothing but the best to ensure that all the stakeholders, the farmers, the tea factory owners, the brokers, exporters, will gain better in time to come. So thank you very much and have a pleasant evening.
Chairman of Sri Lanka Tea Board, Mr. Niraj Dimel, past President of the Association, Mr. Chandima Wickramasinghe, members of the Association, distinguished invitees, ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, let me thank you for inviting me to address you, and I'm extremely honored to be here at the 33rd annual general meeting of the Tea Factory Owners Association. So thanks again for inviting me. I'm not a tea expert, neither an expert on the industry, but however, I may share some thoughts with you on the economy. Certain decisions what we have taken. Of course, the chairman was bringing out few points I may not be in a position to answer right now. Maybe we can engage in the future. The Honorable Minister can take the lead in that. But however, the tea industry is of paramount importance to Sri Lanka, both historically and economically. It plays a significant role in the country's economy and culture. The Tea Factory Owners Association too plays an important role in the overall value chain of the tea industry and provides invaluable services to the tea smallholders sector, which is a major contributor to national tea production. By supporting key processes such as processing of green leaf, supply of agriculture inputs, provisions of finance, and extension services, the members of this association are a vital component of the tea industry in Sri Lanka. By extension, this sector and members of the association become key players in Sri Lanka's economic recovery efforts. For Sri Lanka to emerge from this crisis on a sustainable basis, non-debt creating foreign exchange inflows such as tea exports as well as other exports are very crucial. Thus far, the government has made significant progress in stabilization of the economy, but I must also say we have a long way to go. We can't take it easy right now. The economy is stabilizing. A positive message has been passed on. We are very confident by the end of the year there will be a greater stabilization of the economy. But however, we have a long way to go. Inflation has been brought down to 4% from 70% in September 2022. And we expect during this month it will further drop down to approximately around 2.5% to 3%. Foreign exchange liquidity in the banking system has been normalized, and imports such as fertilizer and crop protection are now readily available. The supply of essential imports such as fuel and cooking gas have been restored, along with uninterrupted power supply, enabling a return to normal economic activities. Interest rates have declined sharply. I know still you have complaints. With the 1-year Treasury bill yield dropping to 13% from over 30% in 2022. From the Ministry of Finance or the Treasury had to locally borrow, since we did not have access to the international capital market, at the rate of 30% for many of the months during the last year. But it is now dropping and we are happy about it. The Sri Lanka's recovery focuses on deep economic reforms, addressing the core structural vulnerabilities in the economy. Fiscal weaknesses has been the primary driver of macroeconomic volatility in Sri Lanka, and weak government revenue generation contributed to public debt reaching unsustainable levels. To address this, the government implemented a major tax reforms that enhance tax rates in a progressive manner. But we do understand we need to strengthen our tax administration system. I think there were concerns raised by the chairman also. We can have a discussion on that and see how best we could assist you in a better way. But however, we have to stabilize and strengthen the economy first. Along with stringent management of expenditure, the revenue enhancement has enabled a primary surplus in the first quarter of 2023. Sri Lanka intends to continue its fiscal consolidation program until a primary surplus of 2.3% of the GDP is achieved from 2025 onwards. The government intends to lock these fiscal gains by bringing in legislation in the form of a Public Finance Management Act by the end of 2023. It's with the legal draftment. It's been discussed. Basically, we have finalized, so we are waiting for the legal draftment department to come back to us on that, which will introduce robust fiscal rules and disciplines on fiscal transparency and public finance governance. Another key source of past macroeconomic instability has been monetary accommodation of fiscal largesse. I don't want to explain more about that. You have experienced, the country has experienced the negative impacts on that. The central bank has consistently provided direct funding to the government, allowing fiscal authorities the space to overextend the budget. A new Central Bank Act that establishes a greater monetary authority and independence was passed in Parliament this July and will be effective from today onwards. To be implemented from today onwards. This act prohibits monetary financing of the budget except under very exceptional circumstances. A key reform to establish microeconomic discipline and provide the legislative framework for inflation targeting. So if we want central bank financing in the future, the Parliament together will have to decide and agree upon to which extent the government can get the support of the central bank for financing. Going forward, the Parliament recently approved a couple of more new legislations introduced by the government, such as the anti-corruption law and the Parliamentary Budget Office to enhance transparency and accountability. Sri Lanka is addressing long neglected vulnerabilities in state-owned enterprises. Cost-reflective pricing was introduced in fuel and in electricity. With competition being introduced in petroleum retail and unbundling of the electricity monopoly, the gains are expected to be locked in over long term. The government is also in the process of restructuring state-owned enterprises. Basically, in the future, the policy of the government would be our economy will be driven by the private sector like you. So the government will only act as a regulatory authority. While such reforms have faced public opposition initially, in a post-crisis environment, there has been greater public understanding of the necessity of these reforms and the need to break from bad practices of the past. The next important step in our journey to sustainable recovery is for Sri Lanka to finalize the restructuring of its debt. This is crucial for the country to restore its external credit ratings and regain access to global capital markets, providing greater stability to external balances. A steady progress has been made with continued engagement with Sri Lanka's official creditor committee, co-chaired by India, Japan and France, which was launched this April at the IMF spring meetings in Washington, DC. Of course, this is a very exclusive creditor committee because we fall outside the common framework of the IMF. So this was established, and we are extremely thankful to all our creditors for the support they are extending to the government of Sri Lanka for us to recover and go in for a sustainable growth. Whilst China is a major creditor, it remains outside the official committee, but continuously engages with Sri Lanka on discussions regarding debt restructuring and has committed to cooperate with Sri Lanka in seeking a speedy debt resolution. Basically, we are lucky our creditor platform is being coordinated by the Paris Club Secretariat. So we are fortunate in that. But of course, China, as I said, sits outside this creditor committee. But they come as an observer, not that they don't participate. The Chinese authorities participate as an observer, but we are having bilateral engagements with all the Chinese authorities who have supported us in financing. The government has also made progress in discussions with private bondholders on potential debt treatments. In addition to efforts to restructure foreign debt, the government intended a domestic debt optimization program with a view to share burden of debt reduction. The implemented DDO, which was passed in Parliament, is been well accepted in the domestic capital market and has been one of the key drivers of the sharp reduction in interest rates experienced during the last month. But however, we are yet to finalize the domestic debt optimization program. There were basically about 3 steps in that. Initially, the Sri Lanka development bonds, which we have finalized already. Then you saw the news on the superannuation funds, where we have already reissued the bonds. And then there were a couple of legal requirements which the government had to comply and the central bank had to comply. So we are in the process of complying, and within the next couple of weeks, we are in a position to finalize our domestic debt optimization program fully. Sri Lanka intends to conclude its debt restructuring process during the final quarter of 2023, in line with the IMF's first review, which just commenced yesterday. It's going to be a long review of almost close to 2 weeks, and the President, His Excellency, the President will have the final meeting on the 26th with the fund mission. A successful first review would place Sri Lanka in a prime position to shift from stabilization to growth from 2024 onwards. With stabilization being established, the economy is poised for recovery and for growth from there onwards. It is crucial that this growth is led by exports of goods and services, tourism, FDIs, and other non-debt creating inflows. This would provide Sri Lanka with the forex resources to service debt obligations on a sustainable basis. The tea sector is an important export crop of the country. Measures to improve productivity, quality, and value addition must be at the forefront of efforts in order to enhance Sri Lanka's position in the global tea market and enhance export proceedings. Members of this association have a crucial role to play towards this objective. The government will take every measure possible to improve productivity and supply capacity of the economy. Measures are being taken to free up state-owned land for productive economic activities. This is something which the government is very serious on. The draft amendments to the employment law will identify means to improve labor productivity across the economy. The government is also taking measures to digitize public services and the economy as a whole, which will further enhance productivity and competitiveness of the economy. Enhanced renewable energy generation and CEB restructuring are expected to bring down electricity costs, which will also support competitiveness of industries, including the tea manufacturing. The government is engaging in new trade agreements to improve markets for exports. Negotiations for FTAs are going on with Thailand and are expected to resume with India and China shortly. In the medium term, the government intends to join the Regional Comprehensive Partnership, the RCEP, which will create a large effective market for all exports. These measures for economic stabilization and growth are part of a broader economic reform program being implemented by the government with the intention of removing economic vulnerabilities that have undermined the economy for many decades, while setting up the country for a more robust, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth going forward. Sectors such as tea exports and drivers of this sector, such as your esteemed association, are at the forefront of this effort in expanding exports and supporting Sri Lanka's return to macroeconomic sustainability. Once again, I don't want to talk about tea, but of course, you may not know, I started my career in the private sector. As maybe few of you know, just after graduation, so I was in the tourism sector for almost a decade or so. Myself and the Honorable Minister, we were elected to Parliament together in 2010, so it's about 13 years back. So tourism would always be one of the key drivers at a time like this. It's a low-hanging fruit. We can see the tourism is improving, but there is potential. We may not touch the best year of 2018, but I think we will make it somewhere there. So the tea culture also becomes important. When we were in the industry, tea was one of the prime products of Sri Lanka, to showcase Sri Lanka. So I'm sure you will use all your expertise to diverse the tea production, to be competitive, and to be part of the tourism sector. I would say a very important part of the tourism sector, because it has a culture and there is a segment that would like to experience different tea varieties and to experience, witness manufacturing tea. Finally, I want to tell one thing, and I want to reiterate the fact, I think I told briefly this before. We have built on lessons learned from the crisis. We have to admit the fact there were mistakes taking place in the past by different governments. So we have learned from the crisis, and the crisis was too costly for citizens of Sri Lanka. So we have learned lessons from the crisis to develop the foundations of a stable and prosperous Sri Lanka. So from the government's point, we can ensure that the economy will stabilize greatly by the end of the year, as I said earlier. We will go in for a growth in 2024. All decisions what we take for the next 48 months will be based on the framework we have agreed upon with the IMF. Actually, it is not the IMF which we have agreed upon. The recovery process or the reform agenda was designed by us. We were supported by different stakeholders. That was the multilateral agencies. We were supported very much by the development partners. We were supported by our friendly nations. So the IMF per se cannot take a call. They have to consult the stakeholders, like all of us do in the industry or the government. So we have a framework. We will ensure that we work within this framework. We cannot deviate from the framework. If we deviate, we once again will have to revert back to what we experienced in 2022. So the government is very much determined to ensure a sustainable economy. So we will not deviate, but we are open for engagements. We are open for discussions. Your concerns can be brought to us. We will see how best we can answer your concerns. But from the government's point, we will work within this framework which we have agreed upon and ensure that we all enjoy a strong and a healthy economy. So I don't want to take much of your time. You will have to excuse me also because I have a very personal engagement to attend. I could not say no to my friend Honorable Ramesh Patirana. That's the reason why I attended. So please excuse me. I have to be at the function by 8 o'clock, which is a very personal family function. I don't generally take off for family activities also because we don't have time to spare. But if I don't go for this function, I may not be able to go home also. So I wish you all the best. Please have trust on the government. We will ensure that Sri Lanka walks in to a greater future and can ensure all decisions taken by the government will establish the fact that we will never ever return to a crisis what we experienced in 2022. In the shorter run, the reform agenda brought in pain. We do understand. But definitely, we are showing positive signs of recovery. And the budget will also concentrate more on the SME sector. His Excellency the President, Ranil Wickremesinghe, is very much concerned how we could support the SME sector because that's the backbone of the economy. So that also will be looked at. And I'm sure with this budget being presented for the following year, we will be in a better position to position our economy. Thank you very much and all the very best to you.